Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel YouTube Spooky Tales by Uncle Duy'sGhost-Episode. I hope everyone has a truly exciting listening session today. Before listening to the ghost story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep things fun. Now, let's begin the first story of today. This first story is related to renting a house. This is a very common issue that occurs in our lives, right? Anyone who has lived will have to rent a house at least once. Those who have it easy will find nothing wrong, while those who are unfortunate and have issues with their rented homes will suffer greatly, just like the girl and her family in this story. This story was shared with Duy'sGhost by a girl from Bentray, who said that back in 2014, her whole family went to the town in Bentray to rent a place to open a shop for business. When they rented this house in Bentray, her mother sold coffee in the morning and opened a pub in the evening. The house was very spiritual, so during the first few days after moving in, they offered some ceremonies and sought permission from the spirits dwelling there. They asked for blessings for their business to be prosperous and for nothing bad to happen. Overall, those first few days of opening the shop were very profitable. They sold a lot in the morning coffee business and also in the evening pub business. Speaking of this house, it is quite long, with a large yard behind it. The house is long enough for us to play badminton indoors. Everyone asked the previous owner about why the house is so long, and they said that this house used to be 3 houses combined. They used it to make coconut candy, but since the previous owner was too noisy with their business, they rented this space to her mother. In the rental agreement, her mother rented for $55, and in the first 2 months of opening the shop, business got very good. Perhaps her mother matched the vibe of the place or something. Anyway, only her mother and her older brother stayed there to sell. As for her, she did not stay there because she went back to the hometown to study, and only occasionally did her grandmother take her up to play. I remember that once. The shop had only been open for 2 months when her grandmother, who was from the countryside, came to visit to see the house and the shop. Her grandmother, being a spiritual medium, could see this and that. So that night when she came to visit, she slept in this house. While sleeping, she noticed a shadow at the door, a figure of a very angry woman. This woman told her directly, "You old woman, how dare you sleep in my house without my permission?" The grandmother remained very calm and said to the woman, "My son rented this place. He just came here for business. I know you are here, so please bless him with good business, and when he makes money, he will take care of you." After her grandmother said that, the woman disappeared. The next morning, her grandmother and mother went to the market to buy offerings. They performed another ceremony at the house. After that, for several days, no phenomena occurred. However, during this time, her mother frequently heard from the neighbors that this house is haunted and that those who rented it didn't last more than 2 months and all left. Her mother noticed that despite that, they were doing quite well, and because she had the spirit on her side, it wasn't an issue for her. However, shortly after, strange occurrences began in the house. For instance, one day, her mother and her older brother were sitting at the dining table, having boiled beef with soy sauce. While they were eating, the soy sauce dish suddenly tipped as if someone was lifting its 2 edges. It tipped so much that the soy sauce was moving back and forth randomly, making it impossible to dip the beef into it. Her older brother had to take another sauce dish to manage eating. Every night while they were sleeping, one would frequently hear footsteps as if someone was walking back and forth. And not just on the ground, but also on the roof tiles. I remember a time when a friend of her older brother, Khan, came over one night with some friends to her mother's shop for drinks. It was already very late, and they didn't want to go home, so they decided to stay at the shop because the place was vast. While they were hanging out, suddenly, Khan turned to look outside. It was still open, and he yelled out that from the street, he saw a big group of people coming towards their house, as if they were returning from watching fireworks. It was crowded with people. But he noticed that there was a guy there with a kind of broken leg walking and wearing a hat resembling someone who died. As soon as he said that, everyone freaked out, and they decided to close the shop and go to sleep instead of continuing to drink. Before that night, Khan had been heartbroken and had attempted suicide, but his family discovered it in time and rushed him to the hospital, so he was saved. They all ended up sleeping in her house because it was really big and could fit everyone. Everyone was sleeping, but this guy Con didn't sleep. He kept glancing down at his friend's kitchen. It was Fat, a nickname from the group. He asked Fat, "Why aren't you sleeping and why are you standing outside the kitchen, doing something all the time? The new people of Tang Fat are lying right next to you. So who is standing near the kitchen that you call Fat?" He looked back, but didn't see anyone in the kitchen. Fat was lying next to him. So who was the person standing in the kitchen? About a month later, Con went to a friend's house to invite him to drink. But since it was too dark, his friend's mother didn't let him go drinking. And he was also afraid of being scolded by his mother, so he didn't go. Con then went to drink alone. When he was tired, and ran to his friend's house. He suddenly heard what seemed like someone calling. He turned around and looked around but saw no one. He looked forward and saw someone standing far away, but that person looked terrifying. Normally, people would avoid that person, but he didn't. He ran straight into that person. After a while, he crashed loudly, only to find out that he didn't hit that person but had crashed into a coconut tree growing beside the road. After such a strong crash, Con broke his leg and screamed loudly. People there called out and took him to the hospital in time, or he would have lost his life. The bar owned by his mother continued to operate normally, but it was unclear why these incidents kept happening at his friend's house. Recently, it seemed that whenever his friend's mother was sleeping, usually during the afternoons, she felt like someone was walking around above her. Every time she felt someone walking over her, it was like a wet person had just finished bathing, walking quickly over her head, with water dripping all over her. When she opened her eyes, there was no one and no drops of water either. So every time that happened, when she woke up, she thought it was just her friend teasing or doing something to her head or neck, but her friend wasn't doing anything. People walked over her head and neck many times, and sometimes it felt like someone pressed down on her neck, squeezing it tightly, while her friend, lying next to her, was just playing with his phone, unaware of anything. Every time like that, her mother tried to recite prayers to escape that episode. If she woke up, she would recount it to a girl who helped in the bar. That girl replied, "No way. I think you're just too tired and having hallucinations. There's nothing here to worry about." That morning, when she said that, at night, she was sleeping in her room when again, that person squeezed her neck tightly. After struggling, she finally got free and cried like a child. The next morning, the mother wrapped her belongings and slept outside, not daring to enter her room anymore. That was when her friend was haunted in that house. That night, around 12, while he was sleeping, he had to pee and went outside to the back where the toilet was. There were 3 toilets in his friend's house, and it was a detached toilet, so he had to walk 10 steps out of the back door to get there. Just as he stepped out of his room, he heard clinking sounds as if someone was cutting their nails. The sound was just like that, and instinctively, he looked over at the dining table. He remembered an incident when he and his mother were eating, and the table shook, causing the soy sauce bowl to roll over. Suddenly, while thinking about that, he looked into the corners of the table because there were offerings, and he saw a shadow lurking there. Oh my God, he was startled at that moment and stood frozen. He thought, no one turned on the lights. Who would be cutting nails there? Only the dim red light for the altar was on. Nothing else was bright. So, simply thinking it was just his brother cutting nails, he asked, "Brother, is it too dark for you to come into the kitchen and do this?" His brother said no, so he mentioned it to his mother, who seemed fine with it. But he suspected she already knew because she didn't say much. In general, those were just scattered incidents he had noticed. He hadn't experienced anything serious until he moved out of that house and ended his contract, and then he thought, I must have been haunted. At that moment, he wasn't scared, but later, looking back, he realized those weren't human encounters, which scared him. He mentioned a road in front of that house, which was a large pothole and had an intersection there. It was very common for accidents to happen there. He also witnessed a couple crashing their bike into a light pole, dying on the spot. After the 2 of them died, many accidents of deaths and injuries started happening on that road, to the point that the spirits of those dead people came back to haunt even during the day. For example, one afternoon, a neighbor of his mother's bar went to sit outside to eat. While she was eating, She looked over at the road near the intersection and saw a trash pile. As she was eating, she noticed a man dressed completely in black from head to toe, like a detective or someone who followed others. The woman found it too strange and kept looking. Suddenly the man turned his head but didn't look at her, just as if he was looking at her, which startled her. At that moment, his head rotated 180 degrees to look at her, a sight that would make anyone faint. The bowl of rice ran straight into the music because the side of the garbage dump over there is entirely white with weeds, and that area has a lot of accidents. The second story is quite sad, sent in by a girl from Dong Thap. The main story she will tell is about her grandmother. However, before telling about her grandmother, she has a small story that she will probably never forget in her life. Because some things happened when she was just 4 or 5 years old, but because this story is so strange and rare, it has remained in her memory until now. At that time, she was just starting kindergarten, only 5 years old. That night, she rode a bicycle with her sister. The two of them went to their grandmother's house to play. When they were playing there and started riding the bike back, they reached a very deserted section because back in the countryside, by 7 or 8 at night, people had all closed their doors to sleep. So the road was empty. The two sisters rode their bicycles along this dark road, where there was a concrete bridge. When they were riding the bike up the slope of the bridge, she suddenly slipped, causing her foot to slip, and she couldn't pedal anymore. Therefore, the bike started to roll down the slope. Maybe because this bridge is also high, so when the bike rolled down, it tilted with its front up and back down on the ground, causing her to hit her head on the concrete, while her sister also fell alongside the bike. But at that moment, when the bike just slipped down, preparing to fall, it felt like someone was lifting her up just within a few seconds. It happened very quickly, and she felt like there was someone in her 2 arms lifting her up to prevent her from hitting the cement of this bridge. Otherwise, she would have shattered her head. The feeling was so light, as if she was floating up, because when she sat up, she realized her sister was just lying there. But she was not hurt because she was still a very young child, so she didn't think much of it. She thought it might just be her imagination, so she didn't tell her family, but only shared it with her friends in the neighborhood, who said she was just imagining things. But when she grew up, she told her mother, and her mother said maybe her grandfather helped her, because her grandfather had just passed away only 2 years prior. It's a very small story, but she still remembers it to this day. Now, this is a new story that happened to her grandmother. As she mentioned earlier, her grandfather passed away in 2007. After her grandfather died, only her grandmother remained. At that time, her grandmother's house was across a river from her house, so she had to cross the river to get to her grandmother's house. Generally speaking, there were also people taking care of her grandmother over there. While she occasionally went over there to visit her grandmother, but not frequently. Later on, her grandmother became old and weak, so she started suffering from spinal illnesses and couldn't move around as much as before. When her grandmother got sick, there was also a family member caring for her, but she felt that they didn't take good care of her. They only did it just to fulfill their responsibility. The family didn't know how her grandmother was doing because every time she visited, her grandmother cried and said that her family member wasn't taking care of her properly and only borrowed money, not providing any food. So her parents decided to bring her grandmother home to care for her. As for the days her parents brought her grandmother home, there were a lot of tangled and irritating issues happening in her house. She remembered back to when her grandmother was still healthy and alert. She was very kind and loved her grandchildren very much. It's because she had many grandchildren, and even though one was only 3 or 4 years old, her grandmother still treated them well without scolding them. However, when her grandmother grew older, her personality changed 180 degrees. At first, she thought older people changed their personalities due to dementia, which was normal. But specifically, her grandmother changed in a strange way while her family, especially her mother, cared for her and worried for her. But those family members didn't care for her at all. Her parents bought shrimp and beef to keep in the fridge to supplement her health. Yet whenever someone visited her grandmother, she cried and told them that her mother didn't take care of her. "You starve me. You don't give me anything to eat. Her voice and demeanor at that time were just like her grandma when she used to live in her old house. They didn't take care of her. Whenever her mother went to visit her grandmother, she would burst into tears just like that. Not only that, but she also recalled that the day they brought her grandmother home, there was not a single peaceful day at her house. From morning till afternoon, her grandmother kept calling out, asking to return to her old house, always insisting to go back there. But over at her old house, nobody was taking care of her at all. They just neglected her completely. No one cared for her. Her grandmother insisted on going back to her house to see this person or that person, but her mother was hot-tempered and said, "If you want to go back to your old house, who will take care of you?" That was just what her mother said, while she continued to take care of her grandmother whenever she fell ill, while the others weren't even around. The story of the ghost lady no longer asking to return to her old house made us think everything was settled. But then Grandma started talking a lot. Suddenly, she would be alone in her mouth. You were also frequently using your phone until late at night, very late indeed. But your habit was that after using your phone before sleeping, you had to go down to where Grandma was sleeping to ask if she needed to use the restroom. Only after ensuring she was okay could you feel at ease going to bed. That day was the same. You planned to go down to see Grandma and ask if she needed to go. You gave her the potty to use. Looking at the clock, it was almost 3 a.m. already. When you reached Grandma's bed, you saw that she wasn't sleeping yet. You started talking to her, but she murmured something to herself. You intended to ask, "Grandma, do you need to go?" When suddenly Grandma pointed her hand down to the kitchen and said, "Look over there." It was like she was directing you to something that had run away. At that moment, you felt like your mind was racing. It was only 3 in the morning, and you were already shocked, realizing Grandma had probably seen something, as if someone had just run away right after you arrived. You also handed Grandma the potty and stood by, waiting for her to finish before you dared to go to sleep. That was your first frightening experience. It was even scarier because Grandma was starting to eat a lot. She had strange eating habits and would often talk to herself. You had never known her to be like that. After eating, she would then speak to your mother, saying, "You're not my mother." As soon as she finished saying that, Grandma stared intently at your mother, as if she wasn't really your grandma anymore. You thought there might be someone else involved, as the distance between your bed and Grandma's was just a window away. You would often catch her looking at you while you played with your phone late into the night. She seemed to be wide awake. Many nights, Grandma would call your name continuously throughout the night. When you shared these stories with others, they'd advise you to cover the window with curtains, since older people are often easily confused. That evening, after finishing dinner, you decided to go to the bathroom to brush your teeth. To reach the bathroom, you had to pass by where Grandma lay. Just a little further was the kitchen, then the bathroom. As you arrived near Grandma, you noticed she seemed restless and muttered something about who was in her room. At that point, it was dark, and you could sense her irritation. She then told you, "Call the person behind you to come talk to me." Hearing that, you felt as if you were paralyzed, your spine chilled because of that unexpected statement. You were terrified, alone in your house. The person behind you didn't exist. This terrified you even more. You rushed back into the house, holding your phone tightly, trembling. The next morning, you immediately told your parents about what happened, prompting them to say they would call a specialist to check on Grandma. When the specialist arrived, he asked whether your grandpa had worshipped many ancestors, especially if he had honored the spirit of the ancestor lady, known for strict requirements for cleanliness. Actually, your dad wasn't too knowledgeable about these matters. However, the specialist revealed that Grandma had once worshipped the ancestor lady, which brought about a realization. On rainy or cold days when Grandma hadn't bathed, she would become very agitated and insisted on sleeping right away, but wouldn't be able to sleep without bathing, staying up until morning. When a specialist mentioned the ancestor lady, your mother, who understood better than your dad, recalled that Grandma had indeed worshipped many ancestors, and particularly the ancestor lady. Your mom remembered that during his lifetime, Grandma was committed to doing rituals, but now that she was old and weak, those practices ceased. It was presumed that the ancestor lady was now affecting her spirit. However, This was just speculation from your family. They couldn't be certain of the truth behind these occurrences. Grandma was indeed acting strangely. Whenever you were home, she displayed bizarre behaviors. However, when the specialist visited, Grandma was docile, as if restrained, quite unlike her usual self. At exactly 3 a.m., she was still talking to herself, demonstrating her odd temperament. Your parents then came to understand that it wasn't their real mother anymore. It seemed someone had taken over her spirit, and you no longer felt pity for her. Instead, you were scared. Every time you approached Grandma, you imagined you might die, especially since she was eating excessively but losing a considerable amount of weight. Every morning, your mom would prepare meals for Grandma or give her porridge, leaving fruits on her bedside for her to snack on. Grandma ate a lot, yet was dangerously thin. Your mother and you once tried persuading Grandma to relocate. She was unbelievably heavy. It took considerable effort for the two of you to manage her, and you felt that she had someone else influencing her. But regardless, your family still cared for Grandma thoroughly. That would cause frustration sometimes, but upon reflection, a sense of love emerged toward her. Nevertheless, your grandmother would often provoke your mother. Your mother possessed a fiery temperament, making Grandma resentful. At night, they'd cry themselves to sleep, feeling helpless. On the day you shared this story with your friends, you sought help and asked everyone if they knew why Grandma seemed to be under someone else's possession or if her personality had just changed unexpectedly. In recent days, such events had multiplied. Du'y was informed that your grandmother was weak and had passed away, which is quite a sad name for your family, as she also passed away too suddenly. So at home, they haven't had a chance to thoroughly understand the reasons or what issues grandmother may have had. Through this story, Du'y also hopes that families living together, especially those with older members, should pay more attention to them. Now, let's move on to the third story, which is quite strange, a spiritual story that doesn't relate to humans, but rather to animals, specifically pets at home. This story was sent to Du'y by a girl who loves keeping pets, especially dogs. After keeping 2 dogs, she noticed something very strange. That's why she sent this story to Du'y. Those who frequently keep pets might be able to explain what this phenomenon is about. The story is from April 23rd this year. She purchased a puppy and named it Bong. She bought it from Saigon and brought it back to Kianjiang to raise it. She said that Bong is very cute and quite intelligent. Even on the first day she met her family, Bong was well behaved. Every time she needed to clean her, although it was a little hyper, she would just say, "All right, stay still so Mom can clean you up," and it would lie still, allowing her to clean it. However, after keeping Bong for just 2 days, she noticed it had strange bowel movements. It was very scared and seemed listless. She was very worried that it might have diarrhea or vomit, as it was very susceptible to illness. So she rushed Bong to a large hospital in Kianjiang, where the doctor required that it be given fluids for 2 days, which she was okay with. The first day, while Bong was getting fluids, everything seemed fine, but by the second day, April 27th, when she brought Bong for more fluids, the nurse informed her that Bong had reacted negatively to the medication, and shortly after, Bong passed away in hospital. She felt very sad at that moment. Even though it was just an animal, she cherished it as if it were her own child. Anyone who loves animals would surely understand the deep pain of losing a pet. That day, she brought Bong's body home from the hospital. On the way home, she whispered to Bong, "Oh, Bong, come back to Mom, okay?" Because it was so far away, the creature seemed just like that. After arriving home and burying Bong, she was exhausted and fell asleep without realizing it. That day she had a long sleep because she was so tired and sad until she woke up at 7 p.m. to check the camera in her room. When she opened it, she was very surprised to see Bong sitting exactly in its spot on the camera, even though it had just passed away that morning. On the camera, it looked alive, sitting just as it used to. This spot was also Bong's favorite in her room, where she placed a full-length mirror. Under that mirror was a red mat where Bong used to lie down and sleep. When she looked closely, she could see Bong was still sitting there, its eyes gazing at her direction. almost as if it were waiting for her to wake up and take it out to play. This wasn't just a one-time occurrence. For the entire first week, each time she checked the camera, she saw Bong's silhouette sitting at the foot of the mirror. After that week, she started thinking that Bong was really gone. As someone who loves animals, she got another dog after Bong's passing and named it BOM. This new dog was very cute, but frequently fell ill. So she took BOM to Bong's grave to pray for her to protect BOM and keep it healthy, hoping that BOM would understand. Despite this, Bong became severely ill afterward, suffering from life-threatening diseases just like those serious conditions that can kill pets. So during those times, she had to take BOM from Kianjiang to Kando to get treatment. Sometimes she would have to go for a week, sometimes even a month, without stopping for Bong's treatment. In general, she tried very hard to care for BOM, and eventually, BOM recovered. When BOM got better, on July 2nd, she moved to Saigon. At this time, she began having dreams about a guy who frequently appeared in her dreams, indicating many events that would happen in the future. She will talk more about this boy in the following episodes. In one of her dreams, he told her that Bong had been looking for her for more than 2 months but hadn't found her. And during the past 2 months, she hadn't been in Kianjiang. She had moved to Saigon. The boy warned that if Bong found her, it would take her away. Hearing that made her frightened, but she didn't know why. Over time, she also forgot. Later, she moved to a bigger apartment for Bong to have more space to run and play. But once she got there, strange things started happening. Normally, Bong was very sweet, but since moving to this new house, it became frequently irritable, growling at night and biting at the air, as if it was trying to attack something. At night, it would only sleep for a couple of hours and wouldn't play all day, just lying around all day long. This made her wonder if there was a pet that would act like that. Afterward, she sought help from a veterinarian who said that BOM might be suffering from psychological issues and that she needed to pay more attention to it. Its condition has continued to deteriorate until recently, on August 30th, it still hasn't really accepted going into the cage. However, there's a detail here that this cage is actually the type used for the teddy bears before at Viatel. You said that the teddy bear rarely slept in this cage, so after the teddy bear passed away, you bought this new teddy bear and let it sleep in the same cage as the previous one. You mentioned that usually your house would turn on the air conditioning, but if the new bear gets too cold, it will crawl into its own little area, which is where the previous teddy bear used to sleep. However, today was very strange. It was really scared when it had to step into this area. It had just poked its head in when suddenly it started to act up, biting at thin air as if it were fighting with another dog. After a bit, at something unidentified back and forth, it began to crawl out and curled up in a corner. You thought the air conditioning was too cold, so you cover it with a blanket and put some garlic cloves underneath the area where the bear lay. Then you burned incense above the cage, and the teddy bear started to sleep normally. It didn't make any trouble or bark at all. After hearing many ghost stories about humans, today we will listen to a story somewhat related to the spiritual world, but involving animals. After hearing this story, we can partly guess that it is probably the spirit of the teddy bear. After it passed, it didn't want you to get another pet because, like a child, you loved it so much. So it wouldn't want to leave you. Although this is not a scary story, anyone who loves to keep dogs or cats will surely understand. And as we reach the end of today's story, don't forget to like and subscribe to support Duy'sGhost. How do you feel about this story? Feel free to leave your comments below to share with everyone. Now let's look forward to the next episodes of the story. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel of Ghost Stories by Uncle Duy'sGhost. I hope everyone has an exciting time listening to ghost stories. And before we listen to the ghost story, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and help Duy'sGhost. Thank you all very much. Now, let's move on to the first story of today, which Duy'sGhost received from a girl living in Bin Duong. This story took place at a karaoke bar in Vinh Long. This girl's hometown is in Vinh Long, but she has been working in karaoke in Bin Duong and has never returned to Vinh Long. It's been a few years now, and she also wants to return to her hometown to work. Coincidentally, during those times, she received an invitation from a friend to go back to Vinh Long to manage a karaoke bar there. She was very excited because she could work close to home and also wanted a change of atmosphere. She hadn't worked in Vinh Long for quite a while, so this opportunity felt refreshing. On the first day back at this karaoke bar, it had been a long time since she had last returned to Vinh Long, so she didn't remember the roads as well as before and wasn't familiar with the area. She wanted to find a nearby place because the karaoke bar was a bit far from her house. So she decided to spend the night at the karaoke bar. That evening, after all the staff had gone home, she was left alone in the bar. At that time, a little girl was preparing to leave and asked her, "Sister, are you sleeping here? Have you seen anything yet?" At that moment, she replied, "What do you mean by seeing something? I wouldn't be scared because I haven't done anything to anyone and they haven't done anything to me either." The girl, however, didn't say much either and just said, "Sister, try to sleep here tonight, and tomorrow some other kids will come here." The story about the female ghost sleeping with her sister just to feel less lonely. "Okay, I'm going home first." After the girl went home, there was only me left in the bar to sleep. "You were very careful when you stayed that night. Before going to sleep, you locked all the doors to make sure it was safe because this was a new place and also a new job for me. Although before that, the managers had locked all the entrances, you still needed to lock the staff's room door for safety. At 2 a.m., you opened the door and started to sleep. In this new place, you kept tossing and turning and couldn't sleep, rolling over until about 4 a.m. when you started to hear some singing that sounded like someone was karaoke singing in the house next door. You were surprised, at 4 a.m., who would pull out the loudspeaker to sit there singing karaoke. It was so noisy. You didn't understand much and tried to sleep to have strength to work the next day, thinking it was just people partying and singing karaoke. So you try to keep your eyes closed and sleep. While lying there drowsily, you suddenly heard a voice next to your ear that you couldn't identify if it was male or female, saying, "Hey, girl, did you come here to sleep without asking for permission? If I see you still sleeping here tomorrow, I will kick you out." According to your natural reflex, you jumped up, startled and awake. You felt scared, so you took out your phone to message the manager, asking him to come by tomorrow morning to buy some fruits for you to offer to the people. Until the next morning, the manager bought fruits for you, and you told everyone the story. You were asking that sister if she lived here, why were you asleep and you got kicked out at night? She said she stayed up at night too, but that was okay. People let her sleep back. Plus tonight, there are 45 people sleeping with me. What's there to be scared of? You continued until a few days later. And that day was the end of the day when some people prepared to go home, while some could stay overnight in this bar, including you. That day, before sleeping, the girls all changed batteries and removed makeup. You know that girl in the group was really scared of ghosts. The girl is named Baby, and everyone was scared of ghosts. So they gathered to tell ghost stories and scare Baby. She got so scared that she screamed. It was loud. Then everyone dispersed and started to sleep because it was no longer fun. The girl was too scared. The story of the real ghost haunting is because that night, when everyone was sleeping, everyone saw this little girl continuously with a colored shell. No one thought it was because she was awake, because just that afternoon she just broke up with her boyfriend until the next noon after having more peace. She then told everyone that the older sisters scared her last night. Last night, I was really haunted by a ghost because while I was sleeping, I saw a girl with really long hair who was very happy sitting with my legs, pulling my feet to invite me to go play. When I heard her say, "You guys must have heard many ghost stories, right? You guys tell ghost stories now. You guys listen." At that time, I was so scared, I began to recite the Buddha's name. But the more I chanted, the more it tightened its hands around my neck. It really was strong, and it said, "You chant Buddha, go, chant some more," but I still tried to recite the Buddha's name. A little while later, I regained consciousness. When I woke up, it disappeared. After I woke up, my hand was so heavy that I couldn't even hold the phone up and couldn't do anything. After all of us heard the younger girl tell it like that, everyone was scared. The other sisters said, "Well, from now on, let's not play with ghosts anymore. Bye. I find it too scary." Then you could also say, "Yeah, from now on, we probably shouldn't play this game anymore." After that, everyone went about their work until late that night before going to sleep. The younger girl was so haunted that she didn't dare to sleep. So she opened the Buddhist scriptures loudly throughout the room, making it very loud. At this point, everyone was also annoyed because everyone was tired from work, and one sister in the group said, "Now if you don't sleep, at least let us sleep. How can anyone sleep when you're chanting so loudly?" Just as the sister had just yelled, Hum was helping her. Just then all 5 of them heard 3 loud knocks at the door, and simultaneously outside there was a voice saying, "Hey, do you know what time it is? Why are you still making noise? I'm trying to take a midday nap, and if you don't sleep, I'm plenty tough." At that time, everyone was startled awake. We stayed up till 6 in the morning, not daring to sleep because it was very late. Then in that room, there were only 2 of us left. Outside, the door was locked. There was no one going back and forth outside at that hour. After staying up all night until 6 in the morning, dawn broke. The whole group went to have breakfast and rested in a cafe until 11 in the afternoon before returning to the restaurant. At that time, everyone asked the manager if around 3 or 4 a.m. he came in here with us or not. He replied, "I didn't come in here to do anything at that hour." The staff were all like that. There was no one left. Hearing that he also didn't know who it was. It continuously gets stuff like that, making even the stones scared. So no one dares to sleep at night in this place anymore, because this place is very spacious, and every night it gets completely empty, which is why the whole group want to find a boarding house to sleep and pay deposits for people. It's just a boarding house, but it resembles a motel with beds, mattresses, and air conditioning already set up. That day, the sisters also prepared to move their green tea stuff into that room to sleep. Then the women working here had to ask, "Are you sisters planning to quit your jobs or go back to your hometown?" Then the friend responded, "No, we're not moving out of the boarding house here. We won't sleep here anymore." After a while, there was a girl who just finished attending customers, and these girls were quite drunk and very happy. Exhausted, she decided to lean on a friend. And then the friend noticed this girl lying there talking on the phone with her boyfriend. After finishing the conversation, the friend turned to her and said, "Hey, you just attended customers. You're drunk, go ahead and take a nap." But she did not sleep and kept scrolling through her phone. The girls had been very normal until the friend said that. Suddenly the girl put down the phone, turned it off, stood up with a very angry face, pointed directly at the friend's face, and changed her tone 180 degrees. "If you all want to move out to another place, I will break your legs. You guys sleep here, got it? You all go take a nap." In the end, everyone was so scared that none dared to move out or pay the deposit. So that night, it was already 2 a.m. after returning from work. Very tired. The friend was also preparing to wash her face and went into the bathroom to cool off before sleeping. When she just approached the bathroom door, intending to open it and go in, she found the bathroom door was locked and heard someone, as if they were pouring water inside the shower like someone was bathing. She stood outside and said, "Who is faster than me today? Bathing longer than me?" After saying that, she looked out and saw many of her roommates who were all sitting there fully in the room. No one was bathing in the bathroom. So why was there such a strange sound? Looking at the bathroom door, she noticed it was locked, but inside someone was washing water. So who was bathing? Meanwhile, she was outside the bathroom. She knocked and asked, "Who is in there? Why do I hear the water running and not a single response?" After that, everyone in the room started knocking on the bathroom door too, but there was still no reply. In the end, the group together unlocked the door and opened it. The water faucet was still running, and the water on the floor was gushing everywhere along with soap, spilling all over the place, as if someone had just taken a shower. At that moment, the whole group was frozen, looking at each other without saying a word, with faces as pale as that of a frightened frog, because it was so scary at 11 p.m. to encounter this scene. No one dared to sleep in that circle that night, which led to the fact that finally, 4 or 5 of them went out to sleep until noon the next day before returning to their shared dorm room. When they entered their shared room, intending to take out their luggage, as soon as they opened the door, a scene appeared before everyone. A pile of items was thrown around, as if someone was partying in that room. Even though they had neatly packed their things into their suitcases the previous night, opening them revealed that every suitcase seemed to have been rummaged through and everything was a mess. which was quite unsettling. At that time, it was as if their minds were chaotic, rushing to gather everything in a single sweep for 4 or 5 people. After that, it was unclear whether they were going to take a permanent break or just a temporary one, as you didn't mention it again, and how this story ends depends on whether you left that bar for good. You didn't continue working there. What happened to the others? I don't know. After you quit here, did you go back to Ben Duong to share your stories from when you worked in Ben Duong? I will recount later in the next episode, and this is a very interesting story. Next up is a story told by a girl from Zhejiang, who also sent me a story about the spirit of a girl who was Chinese. This story of hers happened when she was studying hairdressing, and it involves a borrowed hair and a story about getting hair extensions. In 2019, you were studying hairdressing at a salon about 3 kilometers from your home. Generally, this salon didn't have many customers, probably because it was located in a district area that is not quite in the city. However, you noticed this salon was near your home, and the lady there was really nice, so you decided to learn there. During your studies at this salon, nothing unusual happened for about 6 months, until that day when you saw an old lady in front selling used goods. During the time the lady was collecting items, she brought out a long lock of hair, which you estimate to be about 1 meter long. There was a lot of hair. The old lady called your boss, who is the master, and told her about this lock of hair. This hair, I will sell to you for 2 million. At that moment, when I saw such a long strand of hair, Ms. Thursday liked it very much because hairdressers often take great care of such fresh hair strands. However, she didn't know where this hair strand came from. So Ms. Thursday asked what you had been asking. Where did this hair come from? This hair belongs to my sick daughter. So she used to wear it just like that. After she gets well, she will shave her head to pay a vow. After she recovers, she cut this hair, and then I found it so good that I took it to sell to make money. My child is well now. When she heard this, Ms. Thursday was very happy because such a strand of hair is very valuable. 2 million, 2 or 3 million, she is also ready to pay. Selling this hair is also hair from a living person, so there's nothing to think too much about. In the end, the teacher also paid. And after everything was done, Ms. Thursday and little Keo said, "All right, take this hair upstairs and get it cut for it." You then said, "This hair should go upstairs to be processed before the weekend for another client. Just prepare to go to work again." You also thought it was normal. Then you took this strand of hair upstairs to wash and bleach it to get the color. But you said you bleached it over and over, and it didn't turn the color like other hair strands. It wasn't lifting at all, but the more you bleached it, it developed a stinky smell like a dead rat. It was really smelly. You kept sitting there and bleaching it, but it didn't get any color. So you said to yourself, "What's wrong, Grandma? Doesn't she wash her hair or what? Why is her hair so unmanageable?" You felt helpless. Then you took this hair down to Ms. Thursday and said, "Why is this so strange? This hair, I bleached it for a long time and it didn't take color." When Ms. Thursday heard you say that, she called out, "You bring this hair and soak it in laundry detergent. Then put in a little salt, soak it for an hour, and see if it gets any color or not." And when you followed Ms. Thursday's instructions, it was only after an hour that you managed to bleach that strand of hair, because earlier it was so messed up and the color was so weird, it was still what it was. After everything was done, you asked Ms. Thursday, "Is this hair supposed to be natural? Why does it take so long to bleach and still not color?" Surely the network had something to understand. So Ms. Thursday asked you, "You tie this bunch of hair and leave it there, then you go down and do the customer's hair. What will you do for this?" And you spent that whole day messing around with your shop and forgot that a mess. Thursday told you to bring it up by 5 p.m. At that time, it was already 5 p.m., but you were still busy cutting hair for customers, so you called Sister Deng, who also works at the salon, and asked her to go upstairs to get this lock of hair down for you. And then you would show her how to dye it, because you were also busy with another customer. While she was upstairs getting the lock of hair down, you were also standing there doing hair for a customer and accidentally looked straight out through the window towards the street. You saw across the street a mango tree. When you looked over there, you suddenly saw a little girl. She was quite young, about 12 or 13 years old. You saw that she seemed to have just been in a traffic accident or something, with blood all over her arms and legs. She looked very distressed, and her head was completely bald, not a single hair on it. You found it very strange. You stared at the mango tree and saw that the little girl was sitting there shivering and crying softly, although you were quite far from that girl. After you saw her, you got goosebumps. Just then, Sister Thursday also came out to the yard and asked you if you had just seen a girl with a bald head and a lot of blood on her arms and legs. When she looked over by the mango tree, she only saw a glimpse of something for about 3 or 4 seconds. She didn't see anyone. You looked again and didn't see the girl because you were also a bit surprised, but you had to go back to your work, finishing the hairstyle because in 3 days you had to show it to someone. While you were styling hair, you were also humming a tune. At that time, it was about 5 or 6 p.m., getting close to going home, but you still had to sit there and style this hair, and while styling, the color just wouldn't set, and you were very frustrated. Suddenly, you said to yourself that if this hair didn't set a good color after another round, then just tell Sister Thursday to burn this hair because it was so strange that you worked on it for so long with no results. You were so annoyed and left it like that. Until that night, after you finished working and went home, while you were sleeping, you dreamed about that little girl again. You guess she was around 16 or 17 years old, wearing the same outfit as the little girl from the afternoon. You looked over the street and saw that girl crying by the mango tree. However, this girl had long hair, not bald like the girl in the afternoon. You saw this girl scolding you, saying, "Did you burn my hair? Didn't I tell you not to touch my hair in the afternoon? You burned my hair, didn't you?" Suddenly, you were startled, and you sweated profusely, but during that time, you just thought it was painful. It was just an illusion, nothing much to think about. And everything was busy until 2 or 3 days later, it came to a day when I had to go to use this lock of hair to connect it for her to prepare to go to Dalat to play. But you said it was horrifying. I said that this hairstyle would take from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. to finish before the day I went to Dalat to play. No day was stable at all. On the first day, wanting to go to the hotel, I lay down to sleep as if someone was pressing down on my head and neck, and her hair kept twitching back and forth, indicating a headache. Every time she lay down, saying, "Who allowed you to take my hair? You even dyed my hair this color." It was horrifying. "Have you returned my hair yet?" That girl was said to say, "Oh my God, my dream." I still saw characters climbing on my head, strongly pulling out my hair, and I felt the scene of my scalp peeling off with blood spilling all over the pillow. When that sister was startled awake, it was already dark. That night, she was told to leave that inn to go out for food. When going outside, she met an old woman selling lottery tickets. The old lady didn't approach her, but hurriedly walked past. That sister said to herself, "Oh, you came here to play, but why did I see you carrying so many kids on your back?" That sister replied, "Oh, I don't have any kids." When she looked again, she saw that the lottery ticket seller seemed frightened and quickly walked away. At that moment, the sister felt like someone was swaying on her back, quite heavy. It must be that girl again. After going out to eat that night and coming back from the market, that sister combed her hair, but accidentally pulled away a weak lock of hair. After that, she threw this lock of hair into the trash. As soon as she dropped it into the trash, that lock felt buried. At that point, when she got possessed by the girl, this sister spoke in a very different tone because in the room, there was only her and her boyfriend. She said, "Hey, you have to call her? Tell your cow to return this lock of hair to me. That was my hair who allowed her to take it. If she doesn't return it to me, I'll make her die. If not, I'll make her fall down the stairs to her death. Who dare to take my hair?" After saying that, this little girl was so scared that she immediately ran out of the room at night and took a taxi back to her hometown while the two people were sitting on a bus from Dalat to their house. Then the boyfriend called your teacher, which was also the one who called Ms. Thursday to talk about the matter, because he knew that this hair strand belonged to a dead person. That night, there was also a small party at the store because everyone was receiving their salary. Everyone was eating and drinking together while at that moment you were holding a glass of beer. When you went out to go to the bathroom, you truly saw the little girl from the day before sitting across the street at the mango tree with a bald head, and you heard her say to that little girl, "Give me my hair back." At that moment, because you were scared and possibly drunk, you trembled a lot and dropped your glass of beer on the ground due to panic. You rushed back and told her about it, saying you just saw that girl again. The girl you saw a few days ago across the street, while Ms. Thursday was also describing to you the situation of those girls who had just returned from Dalat. You met those girls in Dalat as well. Finally, after the girl was very upset and went back to her hometown, she quickly returned to your shop to remove this hair. But it was very difficult to take it off. After that, everyone decided to shave off all her hair, and during that time, this girl had to shave off all her hair. She suffered from severe mental breakdown because the other girl continuously came back to demand her hair since the day she shaved her head. She went to stay at the temple with her grandmother until now. After hearing this story, we can see that the fault lies with the old lady who sold the hair to people and did not honestly tell the origins of these hair strands, causing the victims to be those girls. After going to Dalat, this girl lost all her hair. Hearing this, we conclude today's story. Before ending the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel to show your support. If you think about the story, you can leave a comment below for everyone to know. Now let's wait for the next stories to be shared. Goodbye, everyone.